All right, we're going to keep going with the New Voices track here, and we have a very special guest who's flown in last night, and that is Chen from Injective Labs. It's a very hot startup at the moment, and he's going to be talking about how the future of finance is decentralized. So Eric, please join us.
Hey everyone, my name is Chen, and thanks so much for having me. Excited to be chatting with you all today on what I believe the future of finance will look like and how we can all get there. To give a bit of context on me before we get started, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Injective Labs, one of the core contributors to Injective. So what people oftentimes recognize me for is building a fully on-chain order book with my co-founder, Chen. This is the core feature of Injective and what allows for a lot of the innovations that you see across the chain and ecosystem today. The original concept was actually quite straightforward, to create an exchange product with the same efficiencies found in traditional finance, but within a decentralized framework, also allowing it to thrive in a new landscape. See, back in 2019, the DeFi landscape was primarily dominated by automated market makers, or AMMs. These AMMs allowed users to trade crypto assets directly from their wallets by pulling together liquidity. This model became very, very popular because it addressed some of the significant challenges faced by building traditional order book exchanges in a decentralized environment. However, this method was a short-term solution for crypto users that comes with very significant limitations. Slippage, impermanent loss, low capital efficiency, front runnings, and much, much more. AMMs essentially tried to create a solution by diverging into a completely new model, not really seen before in traditional finance. But when in actuality, in order for things to really flourish and achieve sustainable success, we needed to reintegrate the fundamental principles of traditional finance into the decentralized world. So this brings us to the main point of my talk today. What is the future of finance? And why do I believe that DeFi and TradFi are not mutually exclusive, but rather complementary forces? Feel free to take a photo. But before we can envision that future, let's establish some general fundamentals to make it easier for everyone to understand. I've simplified it into two axioms, and of course, I'm using the term axiom very loosely here. The modern financial infrastructure is built really around two core axioms. So first of all, transferring money or any assets takes an incredible amount of time and costs an incredible amount of money. You can't get around that. You can't get faster than that. This is the fastest you can get when you want to transfer something. But it's also ironic and somewhat absurd that to address the issue of this fundamental limitation, we needed to throw more time and money at the problem, and all this kind of creates a circular issue, resulting in an endlessly complex financial stack. And this concept is actually highly palpable and very easy to understand. I'm sure everyone here has experienced this firsthand. How many of us have to wait 3 business days, excluding weekends or holidays, to transfer or access our own money in a bank? Or when we want to wire money, we have to pay $20 and wait another 2 business days. Or pay $10 to receive a cashier's check. This is really a core fundamental limitation of how finance is set up today in the US and the global landscape. And second, what most industry rely upon one way or another, all financial agreements can be honored and protected by a central authority in the same system. And oftentimes we know it as the legal system. This is critical in working around the limitations of the previous axiom and allows for almost every single component of the modern traditional financial infrastructure to exist. It's usually extremely highly effective. It allows for agreements and contracts to be established, agreed upon, and executed very, very quickly, but obviously until it isn't. Beyond the potential for corruption, having financial agreement disputes and resolved or arbitrated by a central authority is oftentimes a lengthy and costly process. This makes what we discussed in the first financial axiom a lot worse. An easy way to think about this failure is imagine going to court over a bar tab dispute. Now, what do these axioms culminate in? It goes into credit. These fundamental truths about the limitation of finance give rise to one of its most essential building blocks. Now, before we start zoning out and falling asleep, don't worry, I'm not going to delve into a full-on philosophical discussion on the nature of credit or the history of it. This is simply a fact that like any type of financial agreement between two or more parties involving the transfer of assets or money at a future date is by definition and inherently just credit. And it's important to know that not all credits are debts. So while the concept of credit is very straightforward, its applications are more vast and varied than you think. For example, payment apps like Venmo or PayPal actually gives you $1 credit after you deposit money into their bank account. Or the money you deposit in your bank savings account can be lent to a business owner on the other side of the country or even the world. It's clear that our global economy runs on credit. But on a more granular level, credit also underpins securities, financial contracts, such as stocks, derivatives, options, and much, much more. Almost everything in the financial industry cannot escape credit. And that also creates the kind of concept of fungibility of money within TradFi. But this brings us to the role of blockchain technology. All the credit examples I've mentioned relies heavily on human trust and supervision, a system based on credit or risk assessment and many, many models that come with it. However, human trust can lead to significant issues at scale. I don't really need to remind you of all the financial crashes that have happened in the recent years, let alone the past few decades. There's a whole Wikipedia page around it. Events like the 2008 financial crisis, the dot-com collapse, the failure of Silicon Valley Bank, and the GameStop saga all seem impossible until they actually happened. And these instances serve as very harsh reminders of the vulnerabilities of our traditional financial system. So this is where we find ourselves now. The first iterations of blockchain technology look to solve these issues simply by replicating the financial systems on-chain. These initial efforts mainly focus on duplicating existing models rather than innovating beyond them because, well, this is a 0-to-1 process. If you want to build up a new financial system, you have to first of all build up the critical primitives, which are oftentimes overlapping. And then the second point is that there's an expectation that the power of blockchain technology and immutable ledger alone would solve the fundamental issues of finance, provide value proposition, and lead to significant adoption. And as like a comparison, here are some of the main DeFi replications that have emerged as a result, shown here with some of a conceptual traditional finance counterpart. I don't really need to walk through all of these, as I'm sure you're probably familiar with them. But so far, these are only replications of traditional financial systems on-chain. And DeFi has yet to fully replicate the entire vertical stack of existing financial infrastructure. Why? Because mere replication and replacement are not necessarily the ultimate goal. To really affect meaningful change, we have to transform the system from within. And this goes back to my main point. In a DeFi versus TradFi conversation, blockchain technology should aim to address inefficiencies of the entire outdated system overall. So what do I envision for this type of convergence? So I believe 3 of the next innovations that will revolutionize the broader financial industry are on-chain asset tokenization, on-chain lending, on-chain exchanges. Now, just as the term DeFi conjures specific connotations, you definitely have preconceived notions about these 3 innovations. For those who are in the space for as long as I have, you definitely find it cliche. This isn't the first time we hear about it. This isn't the first time we find it promising. But I'll break down exactly what I mean by each of these categories on the new advancements, and what are some of the trends I see emerging, and how they will play a role in revolutionizing finance for the future. So asset tokenization and RWAs are a huge topic right now, and the industry has seen significant growth within the past 10 years. There's been more adoption, which we've seen with Coinbase and Helix recently listing perp markets for assets like silver, gold, oil, et cetera, more mature rails, and a more established regulatory framework. And these elements were all essential for growth. And for the first time, we finally have all of them in place. But when we say asset tokenization, what do we really mean here? In TradFi, issuers provide assets like treasury bills or derivatives which can be used for a variety of financial activities. You can purchase those assets, trade them, or use them in different financial contracts, even put them in a margin account, trade them all together. However, engaging in these type of activities often involve numerous central authorities, leading to inefficiencies and failures. Now, no matter how much they try to abstract it to you on the user end, the real cost and the real inefficiencies in process are always there. It's always kind of showing up to users as like fees, et cetera. So in the crypto industry, we've seen an attempt to replicate this system on-chain. Stable assets like stable coins are issued for trading derivatives and engaging in these type of financial contracts. But users might not realize that these stable assets are issued by entities holding large reserves and low-risk liquid assets like US Treasury bonds. And these entities earn the interest from those bonds and keep it to themselves. This setup essentially mirrors traditional finance, bringing it on-chain, but with a significant improvement in efficiency in both time and cost. Although it's still currently lacking in full decentralization in a sense. But what if we cut out the middleman further, right? Imagine if treasury bills themselves were on-chain and used as collateral for trading derivatives in all in one transaction across multiple platforms from anywhere in the world and get that done all in 1 second. This model not only diverges from traditional finance, but also from conventional DeFi, where typically the issuing entity reaps the rewards. Instead, it merges the strength of both systems, enabling users to directly benefit from the yield, enhancing the decentralized and user-centric nature of true DeFi platforms. Now, RWAs become composable, providing flexibility and efficiency. And this is what we mean by merging DeFi with TradFi when it comes to asset tokenization. So for lending and borrowing on-chain, let's revisit the fundamental concept of credit. Credit is an agreement between a lender and a borrower, allowing the borrower to purchase items without having the full amount up front. The lender provides the money based on the borrower's perceived trustworthiness, which might be established through something like a credit score. In an ideal world where trust is ubiquitous and verifiable, the system works perfectly fine. However, when trust falters, debt becomes out of control. DeFi addresses this by taking a conservative stance and facilitating lending and borrowing on-chain through smart contracts, which automate the process without relying on human trust. Instead of trust, actual collateral is required. A lender would require an asset to be locked up in exchange for issuing a loan. If the value of the collateralized asset increases, the borrower's line of credit expands. Conversely, if the asset value decreases and the borrower cannot repay the loan, the lender claims the collateral instead. But previous attempts at building traditional loan ecosystems have struggled because DeFi was way too immature. And over-collateralized lending infrastructure needed to be more established and more liquid for under-collateralized platforms to thrive and prosper. And while these type of lending and borrowing model mitigates the risk of debt, it raises the question, how do we combine TradFi and DeFi principles to manage debt but also enhance the capital efficiency? One way which we can achieve this in a naive way is under-collateralized loans on-chain. In a hybrid model, lenders can offer larger loans with less collateral based on the borrower's verifiable on- and off-chain earnings history. This approach doesn't rely solely on traditional credit scores, but also leverages transparent on-chain data that assesses the borrower's ability to repay. This merger of TradFi credit evaluation and enforceability with DeFi's transparency creates a much more efficient and accessible financial ecosystem, unlocking liquidity and fostering exponential financial innovation. And then, of course, at the heart of all this is an on-chain central limit order book. And look, while this concept may not seem entirely new, given that we worked on it since 2018, it remains central to the future I envision because the actual marketplace for financial contracts is the core of everything. In both the future vision of asset tokenization and lending and borrowing on-chain, both of these can really only occur and are only visible because it utilizes an on-chain order book. I could go on and on about the fundamental benefits that comes from having an order book on-chain. Trades cannot be stopped, counterparty risks are eliminated. But suffice to say that there is no financial contract that can occur without the use of an on-chain order book. And contrary to common belief, this whole infrastructure is actually a lot faster than TradFi counterparts. Trades, settlements, and transactions on an on-chain order book can all be finalized within as little as under 1 second. Whereas for TradFi, in T+2 settlements, it would take 2+ business days. On-chain order book also opens participation, allows both institutions and individual users to engage on equal footing. Institutions in particular obviously benefit still from the ability to move larger funds without counterparty risks, enabling them to hedge positions more effectively at a lower cost. So as we look towards the future, it's clear that the convergence of TradFi and DeFi is not just a possibility, but rather an inevitable transformation. The advancements we've discussed today, from on-chain asset tokenization to lending to borrowing, illustrate how this convergence is already reshaping the financial landscape. Even looking at current news, the approval of ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum by traditional financial institutions is really a testament to this shift. What was once seen as speculative is now being integrated into the very fabric of our financial systems. In this converged financial future, the benefit extends far beyond what we've discussed today. A more efficient and transparent system can contribute to economic growth, help nations manage debt more efficiently, and create a more equitable world. The future of finance is converged, blending the best of TradFi and DeFi to create a system that serves everyone better. By harnessing the power of blockchain technology and the immutable ledger, we are not just solving inefficiencies of the past, we're building a robust foundation for the entire future. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you much, Eric. Anyone have a question? Future of finance, there must be a question out here. So I'll give a question, Eric. Maybe if you take us forward like a 5-10 years, how is the kind of user experience as an end user and crypto user going to change because of this feature you're outlining here?
So there's actually two possible scenarios in completely different direction. One is that it's all abstracted away, all the interactions, all the complexities. It's there's more layering and layering of applications, frameworks, security layers that allows you to use it as if it's a Web2 app. It's super convenient. It's whatever fits the users best. But another case that people might not realize is that maybe user just get used to it. It's the same case for if you try to set up a bank account today, you would have to walk in a branch, perform all the KYC procedures, and allow a bank manager to walk you through the entire step. Freaking entering pages of information for a wire transfer, et cetera. You just treat it as a common day-to-day life. Now, it might not be an improvement, and arguably, functionally speaking, transferring crypto assets is just so much easier. It's just that it wasn't explained better, it wasn't abstracted better. So it could really go both ways. It really depends on at the end of the day, security and compliance framework that develops over time, where user ends up adopting to the standard, or some sort of surprising shift in terms of application behavior or application layering that allows everything to be abstracted away, the neobank trends.
Right. Anyone have a question?
Over here. Oh, sorry. I'm Nikita from Chain Patrol. I want to ask a question. The under-collateralized loans is a really interesting area for me. How do you see the data from, you mentioned we need to bring in the TradFi data in to really make that more and more possible. Do you see that coming in from I don't know, oracles like Chainlink? Is it banks publishing data themselves? Is it individuals somehow taking the data and bringing it on chain? What do you see the pathways of how do we get that data needed for under-collateralized loans into the crypto ecosystem?
So this goes into financial privacy, compliance frameworks, et cetera. Because when we're talking about basically individual data or their financial history, that's at the end of the day compliant with the existing financial system. So there's a lot of privacy related regulations around it. So in terms of data availability, from an on-chain perspective, I kind of doubt that's going to happen unless the regulations change. I have a feeling that it's probably going to be went through some sort of verification or more of an attestation process, or perhaps ZK proof process. but you know how banks' infrastructures are with like a radically new technology. So ZK might take a little bit to reach full adoption per se. I think like generally like this is the first time we've seen like protocols or like application structures like this. This is probably like the first time I've seen something like this is probably like 2018. But for the very first time, like the space has matured a lot, the liquidity has matured a lot, but more importantly, you know, this isn't like an angle towards like, you know, just going more centralized. This is more like adding on the choice, allowing for layering and like an open credit market where like you have the optionality of trusting this credit provider that references from, you know, TradFi like earning history or credit risk to adopt and to incorporate into it to expand utility. So this is, you know, like expanding the spectrum and allowing for more choice. And yeah, like I feel like it's going to be like attestation based. It's not going to be Oracle based. So this means that there's going to be like a bit of a central like a backing facility or a credit facility at start to attest for like their earning history, to like basically try to like look for like liquidity for like lenders on chain. And this way, you know, those type of kind of like credit-based loans can be executed with better rates.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, over here. So, what do you think about Tether? And I'm working on a project now where I think and you can expand on Tether, but the minting of new Tether, they've taken the world by storm and they've done a good job as far as being one of the more popular, just like stable coins. But I'm working on a concept where the quantity amount of the asset is locked. You know, there's no more minting, there's no more new creation. And I was talking to a rep from Chainlink, and I shared with him my project, and he gave me advice, and his advice was in the idea of creating more, but I don't want to create more. So I'm working on a project where the quantity supply is capped, and you know it's visible to everybody. And I still am going to get banking partners that are going to loan against the capped quantity supply. They're going to be able to issue loans in their jurisdiction, whatever currency or whatever, you know, token, coin, or whatever thing they want to give the loan out against. But they will be getting the collateral from my capped token. Is it different? I'm sorry. How do you see new collateralized, whether they're tokens, stable coins, assets? How do you see new collateralized tokens being issued in like new lending projects? Because I'm trying to do a little bit different from Tether.
So it depends, right? Like, is the collateralization fully on chain? So I would say like just from like personal opinion, I think like the cap in terms of like quantity of issuance for any type of like stable or like, you know, like constant value reflection products, that matters less per se. And the reason why like, you know, like overminting, like kind of like overexpansion of those type of assets, it's generally the concern of like solvency, like backing, right? It means that like those assets are overminted and thereby under collateralized, especially on like a liquidity adjusted like valuation, right? So I think that is the crux of the problem. It's more like transparency, and also like if you're talking about like, you know, like trafi assets or, you know, equity assets, which doesn't necessarily have undergone like a full-on like tokenization, then it's also about, you know, like trustworthiness, like the TradFi set of like basically transparency, security, and also like solvency. So yeah, like I think that is a bigger problem to solve, where how do you get users to trust that, you know, you are prevented from like you know, like overissuing your asset, driving into insolvency, like, you know, what we've seen with like FTX, et cetera, versus, you know, capping the quantity, which at the end of the day, it just caps growth. Obviously, this is a different case. If you're talking about like basket of assets that's fluctuating in values that you expect it to be, but then that's just tokenization.
Thank you very much, Eric Chen from Injective Labs. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
So we'll be back with another New Voices talk in a minute, and thanks all for staying and sticking around. Thank you.